Thank you. We'll be starting about 2 minutes and people from my seat.
It happened right there. That's all. But it wasn't. Do we know if the owls in the Yeah, just unmuted it.
Okay. Just you're ready to go. And then I'll stop it later. But it's for you. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our afternoon sessions. We hope that this morning has been really valuable. You've been learning and ideating together. This is our first afternoon session all together, examples of neuro-inclusive housing properties. So I'm going to hand it over to Tim just to kick it off, and then we'll hear from our panelists.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. I hope everybody had a enjoyable lunch. I hope you got outside a little bit. It's so beautiful out. One of the, I was telling people that from out of state that it could have been this, or it could have been a foot of snow. You never know from day to day. So, thankfully we had some really nice weather today. I had the good fortune to know all these folks, and I'm really glad that they're going to be here to tell you about the actual things that are going on in development of neuro-inclusive housing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get that started. I think we're going to start with Laura McKenna from Tall Tales Ranch.
Thank you. See if I can manage this. Yay. I noticed if I stand back here, I'm shorter than the speaker. I'll see if you can see. So I'm the executive director of Tall Tales Ranch. It is a neuro-inclusive community that will look like that, or that, if you're looking this way. And I say will because it's not built yet, but we're very close. This is our site improvement plan of what the community will look like. If you can see the buildings, the top one, the biggest one is our community event barn. And in that we'll have a coffee shop. How many of you got coffee this morning? Thank you. That was provided by Tall Tales Ranch. We have a mobile coffee shop right now, providing employment for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The other properties here, we have what are called two-paired cottages that will have 28 apartments, one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments. And in the middle, the blue house there will be our community center. The nice thing about this property, besides it looks beautiful and we'll have a community garden, is our location. And it's in Lone Tree, Colorado, right at I-25 and Ridgegate property in the south, the very south exit you can take and still be in the metro area. But before I go into all of this information about what this property is going to be, I really want to talk to you about what our inspiration is. And this morning I was on a parent panel, and I really would have hoped that Susan Mooney could have been on that parent panel, because the inspiration for Tall Tales Ranch, like it is for so many communities for people with IBD, has been parents. The parents are like, there's nothing for my child, and so I guess I'll just have to create it. Well, Susan and Pat, their son Ross, actually was not born with a developmental disability. He had an acquired brain injury when he was about 12 years old. So he was a typical 12-year-old, began to deteriorate. They found out that he had this disease that was genetic, that was destroying the white matter in his brain. And the only way that he could be saved was by a bone marrow transplant, which he received from his brother. So since that time, Ross has stabilized, but there was enough brain damage that he needs a lifetime of supports. If anybody's met Ross, he's just the most fun person you'd ever want to meet. He's just a blast. But he's the inspiration for why Tall Tales is in existence. And that was for me when I met Susan 14 years ago, maybe, and learned about what they were wanting. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm looking for my child. And what I know so many other people would be looking for. So they had this vision that Tall Tales Ranch would address three core things that we all really want. One is meaningful work. So right now we decided to start the work before the residential. And so we have our Tall Tales Coffee Company where we provide catering, and we have a mobile coffee shop. If you've ever seen it, you can't miss it. This is kind of a bright orange gold that Emma here drives around, and Andrew sometimes works in. He's in our pictures up here too. But beyond that, we want to have an actual brick and mortar coffee shop. So on our site, we'll have the community event barn that will be space that can be rented out to other organizations for weddings, conferences, meetings, family reunions. But it'll also be a coffee shop that will provide ongoing employment for people with IBD. So come and visit us when we're open with that too. But then ultimately the main goal was the safe, stable, quality home life. So we had a place for people to live in an inclusive environment where they were safe, they had stability, there wasn't risk of losing their housing, and that they could have a nice home life. And then social engagement, relationship development. This is the community piece that you've heard everybody talk about already, that there will be opportunities to develop friendships, to go on outings with people, to get to work, to know how to take public transportation, to have neuro-inclusive friendships, all not just on the location of Tall Tales Ranch, but we go out, be a part of the greater community in Douglas County or Lone Tree and beyond. So what all of the rest of us want. We want relationships, we want a stable housing, and we want a good job. So ultimately, we wanted to address a whole community need. One is inclusion, the other is diversity, which is very similar, but one of the things that I feel like we find a lot is that we don't get included in the diversity conversation. That our individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities, they make the world more diverse and more interesting. And so we want to address that as well. The jobs, obviously providing employment not only in our coffee trailer and our coffee company, but because of our location, we have some great opportunities for community-based employment. We'd like to expand our program to helping people find jobs beyond the coffee trailer. And then affordable housing. As we all know, that's a huge issue for any of our individuals. I also really like to focus on the generational impact that Tall Tales has, and that I think all of the housing providers are doing that. This isn't just for those individuals that are living there. It impacts their siblings. It impacts their parents. We have people who live with grandparents even. And so it impacts so many other people than just the individuals that are going to be living there. So the things that I think anyway, make Tall Tales Ranch unique, and I put location, location, location. If you ask any realtor, that's the first thing they probably say. We're really blessed with where we're located at. And how it happened was really interesting. And it's all about who you know and the 6 degrees of separation that happened. And that our friends, the Moonies, who created this concept, were looking for land where they could build this. And they were like, we're going to end up being, out in Kansas to find, reasonable real estate for what we want to do. They were invited to a party, and at that party was someone who knew a developer who was affiliated with the Schweiger Ranch Foundation and Ridgegate Investments and Coventry Development. And he said, I have land that you guys could build on. We want to do some more affordable housing. It's owned by the Schweiger Ranch Foundation, but we'll lease it to you for $50 for 50 years. So we basically got our land for free. Prime real estate, Ridgegate 925, across the street from the light rail station. So public transportation is already available for everybody. So they have the light rail. And also the cool thing in Lone Tree is they have what's called a Lone Tree Link. It's free public transportation to anybody who lives in Lone Tree and wants to go somewhere in Lone Tree. So if our guys are working at Park Meadows Mall, they can have free transportation on the Lone Tree Link to work and back. And if they want to go bowling, if they want to go to a movie, if they want to just go to the mall or do whatever, they can have free transportation on the Lone Tree Link. So we have a great relationship with the transportation department. We have a phenomenal relationship with the police department, because with light rail comes some issues as well. There's a good and bad side, but so the police department are very familiar with us. We actually have meetings at their offices. So our location is critical in that way. And also be critical employment opportunities. So people can get to work with that transportation, but there's lots of retail, lots of coffee shops. We're close to Skyridge Medical Center that all provide different kinds of job opportunities that people can get to basically for free. The other thing, so that's the access to shopping, jobs, recreation. Our neighbors are phenomenal because we are on the Schweiger Ranch property, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's a preserved Austrian ranch. And you might have seen it because you can actually see it from I-25. It's just this beautiful ranch that has goats and chickens and an old farmhouse, and they do a fall festival and a Kindle market. So we are right next to them. That's our neighbor on the south side. To the north side is a senior living community, experienced senior living called the Reserve, and they couldn't be more excited to have us as neighbors. So there's opportunities with them for one, fundraising, two, volunteers, and they're excited to employ our individuals at their senior living center. So we have built-in job opportunities because of this location. And then obviously it's a neurodiverse community. So we want to make sure that we have, most of our residents will have an intellectual or developmental disability, but we will have people who are neurodiverse and neurodivergent. So the hardest part is the money, honestly. When you're building something that is 20 apartment buildings, a clubhouse, a community event barn, a coffee shop, gardens, it's not cheap. And so the Moonies, who started fundraising right away about 10 years ago. So Tall Tales Ranch has been around for 10 years. And in that time, we've been fundraising, but also providing some programming to individuals, primarily social programming, and now our employment program. And then we have a young professional board that's diverse. So we have individuals with intellectual disabilities and people without. And that's been a huge success too. But raising the money has been always a struggle. And especially when you have to raise about $18 to $20 million. So we've worked on this for a while. Our budget, we phase things out, and I think that's kind of been the smart way to do this. That our first phase is going to be to do all of the land development. This is raw dirt. My background before I started with Tall Tales was in a home building related to that anyway, but a nonprofit that does home building. So I've been able to use some of my expertise there. But so phase one, the land development itself is almost $4 million. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. You have your water tap fees, you have the cost to develop raw land, basically. And then in that, we will also do our resource center clubhouse and then one parent apartment. We decided the resource center, which is our clubhouse, was important to do because we have this coffee program, but we have no space. So we borrow space to grind coffee, to train our ambassadors, and we'd really love to have an actual space where they could actually meet. We can start doing some programming on site. And then we'll do the first phase, first apartment, and then we'll do the second one, and then we'll finish with the coffee shop and the barn. So it's a big process, but we plan to have all of the residential pieces done by 2026, the end of 2026. So we're underway, I guess I would say. So our funding sources have been the land lease that I mentioned. And I can say that with my background working for another organization where we did construction projects for other nonprofits, whenever a nonprofit says we have free land, it's not good. It's never good. And so when I was told we have free land, I'm like, oh, I don't know, but this has just been amazing. It really is very good property. So that land lease saved us a lot in buying land. Individual giving, we raised over $4 million in just individual gifts. Foundation support, Douglas County ARPA funding, mill levy funding each year has gone to the project. We have the Strong Communities Grant, which helps with infrastructure. That's a state grant. Proposition 123 funding, yay, through CHFA was over $4 million that we'll get for our residential program. We are working with First Bank on a construction loan. And then Homemade Colorado was a nonprofit that I did work for 20 years that works with home builders to get them to donate their services and their supplies and materials. So we'll have substantial impact or in-kind support, probably $3 to $4 million in that. So hopefully more. So we've had to get creative. You always do. Find out where your sources are. There's more funding we found for the residential piece than the community piece, and that's why we're hoping with the resource center that most of that will be in kind donations, but we do have the cash for it. So this is what our future will be. So we'll start with doing the land development on the site. Right now, we're looking at starting probably in December. So we're really excited about that and a little scared too. But our goal is we're working with Shea Homes, who is building a whole community right behind us. And that's why we think we'll do really well with in-kind donations from their subs and suppliers. But they'll start doing the land work in December. We think the first building, the Community Resource Center, will be started in the spring, early spring of 2025. And we'll just roll right into the residential piece. So ultimately, a total of 32 individuals will live at Tall Tales Ranch. We will have concierge service, as was mentioned, some of the other ones. So we'll have on-site staff that will help with problem solving, schedules, all of those kinds of things too. And that's what our goal is at this point. So I'll turn it over to Nicole. There's way too many things for me to use my time, so.
Okay, hi, my name is Nicole DeVries. I'm the Executive Director at Wellspring Community, and I am here to talk to you, tell you a little bit about Unity on Park, which is an inclusive community, affordable community down in Castle Rock. And I am going to tell you a little bit about Unity, how it came to be. where our funding came from, how that funding stack happened, how it's going to function, and then really I want to spend some time talking about our strategic partnerships that actually helped this project come into fruition, because Tim asked me to, so that's why I'm doing it. But then I'll talk about how our partnership will function moving forward and how we plan on it making it work. So the purpose of Unity and like all the communities here was to create an inclusive, intentional community where adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities have the right resources, support, socialization in a safe environment where they can live and have great access to the community. And we are, I'm literally waiting for a text to say we're getting our CO so we can move in on Friday. So that is our hope. So this is Unity Park. I will tell you that 5 years ago, Wellspring Community was not going to do residential services. The stance of our board was we do a great day program. Wellspring Community's been around for 16 years. We do a great day program. We should stay in our lane. That's what we do. We have amazing work opportunities, and residential should just stay with people who knew what they were doing, was what the board said to us. But we have a very long wait list to get into our program. It's large and it's growing, and we are at capacity in our program so because of space. So we were looking at how can we expand our facilities, how can we remodel to get the space that we needed. And at the time that we were having that conversation, we found out that directly adjacent to the church that we rent space from, and we were talking to the church about how we expand our space within the church, we found out that this La Quinta Hotel, that they're literally 30 feet apart, the buildings run parallel to each other, was going to be converted into workforce housing, and was going to be converted into apartments. And I said, hey, we should go see if we can get a couple of those apartments and for some of our participants. And within a couple of weeks, the owner of the hotel said, why don't you guys just buy the hotel? And I said, great. Where do I come up with $6.2 million? And at that same time, we had started a relationship with the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. Prior to that, about 4 months before that, I had sat down and had lunch with the executive director of the Douglas County Housing Partnership. And we had said, hey, we should do something together to address the need for housing for adults with IED in Douglas County. I left that lunch and thought, that will never happen, and moved on. Well, then we found out this hotel's for sale, and we also found out the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners had $63 million in ARPA funds that they needed to allocate, and they were on the time crunch to do that. Abe Layton, who's the Douglas County Commissioner, had asked me probably 3 weeks prior to that, what's the biggest need of your families? What is the need for the people in your program? And I had said to him, long-term care, residential solutions, and housing solutions. And he said, let's keep talking. So guess what I called up? I said, hey, we have a hotel that's available for sale. So we pitched this idea to the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. And within a week, they came back to us and said, hey, we're going to buy this hotel for you. And so they did. It was huge. So they bought us this hotel. They deeded it over to, we created a new nonprofit called Wellspring Housing. They deeded it over to Wellspring Housing. And then we started a partnership with the Douglas County Housing Partnership to own and manage the actual building. But what we did, and this is, we tried to be as efficient and effective and economical as we could. We took every 2 hotel rooms that, we did this for 22 of them. We took every 2 hotel rooms, took out the bathroom, and put in a kitchen on one side. So created a kitchen You can see it there. That's a kitchen where a bathroom used to be, and a living room, and then a bedroom and a bathroom on the other side. So there's 22 of those. And then studios, we left 20 studios, so we just put a kitchenette, small kitchenette into what used to be a hotel room. So it was a very economical, efficient, and quick remodel. We started this project in April of 2022 was when we pitched to the commissioners. Like I said, we're hoping to move in this weekend. So it went pretty fast for us. How the funding for it came together was actually pretty incredible too. So the county put up the initial cash to buy the building for us. The developmental pathways, which is our case management agency, had mill levy money that the county asked them to throw in $500,000 in on this project, because even though we have the building, it still cost money to remodel this project and get it to where we needed it to be. So developmental pathways threw in $500,000. We then went to the state of Colorado, the Department of Local Affairs, their division of housing, and applied for a transformational affordable housing grant. So is Wayne still here? I believe. Wayne Cleary, who was here earlier, we got a $4 million grant from the state as well. So Douglas County was really smart in how they went about this. They said, we want to leverage as much money as we can from wherever we can to put into this project. So we went to the state, got $4 million from the state. $3.5 million of that goes back to Douglas County. Some of that will go to Tall Tales Ranch. Some of that will go to other organizations that are serving the IDP population in Douglas County. And then the town of Castle Rock had a $650,000 development fee that they were going to tack on to this project. And we convinced them to waive it. So the town of Castle Rock did not, it didn't cost them anything, except they did not get that money in their budget. So they waived that fee. It was a huge deal for us. And then finally, we had to take out a construction loan for the remodel. So we worked with Midwest One Bank out of Kansas City. We did tax exempt bond financing to get a really low rate. So we have a 4.25% loan that'll convert to perm when we finish here in the next couple of weeks. And the rents from the apartments will actually pay that loan. So if you were paying attention, this cost Wellspring nothing. It's kind of crazy. So we put up we paid for some expenses to begin with, but we were reimbursed those once the construction loan opened. Now, we have spent money to get our residential services program up and running. I'll talk about that in a bit. The developmental pathways, again, our case management agency has also come in to support us with grants with that. So to people who are thinking the money's not out there and it's too hard and the money is a hurdle, there is money out there and it is possible to make it happen. So that is how our funding stack happened. But I want to talk a little bit about our strategic partnerships and what these meant to us and how important I think these are, not just to our project, but I think to every partner, every project out there. The county commissioners, and I think we have some county commissioners with us here today, we could not have done it without the buy-in of our county commissioners. They are people that I have their numbers on my cell phone. I can call any of them up and say, I need something. They are bought into this project. And from what I've heard, every county in Colorado, the commissioners are bought in as well. They know that this is an issue and they want to help. So the county commissioners have been huge to us. Developmental Pathways too is our case management agency. I work with them regularly on trying to find these types of solutions. If you are not connected with your case management agency and trying to figure out how to make it work, you should be. Town of Castle Rock. I started with the planner actually. So I was working with a planner on another real estate project that we have going on. I pitched the idea to her, she bought in on it, and then she convinced the rest of the town staff at the planning level that this was a project worth getting behind. And then when the $650,000 development fee showed up, I met with the town manager. And he said, I don't know how I can get this off. This is too much money for me to go to town council and ask them to waive this. And I simply said to him, this will kill the project if we have to pay this fee. And he took a deep breath and he said, okay, well, let's figure out how to get it waived. And then he encouraged me to meet with every single town council member. So I did, all but two. I did not meet two of the town council members, but I met with every single one of them. I had to educate them on what people with IDD needed in terms of housing, what the issue was and the crisis is that we are facing with housing and residential care, why we needed affordable housing for people with IDD, because if you are from Douglas County or Castle Rock, we don't like affordable housing down there. I like affordable housing, they don't. I had to educate our town council on why they needed to approve this, and when it finally went to a vote, every single one of them had something positive to say about it, and they had voted for it unanimously, so it was worth all that time and effort. The state of Colorado, again, they came in and were hugely helpful. The other piece that has been so good for us is volunteer groups. So I am a part of the Castle Rock Rotary Club, Rotary, Civitan groups. They all have a heart for the population that we're working with. They have grant money to help with us. They have volunteers that will come out and help. They have been huge in this project as well. Christian Brothers Automotive has an incredible charitable giving program as well as volunteer programs. So they help with us and they have come out and volunteered multiple times. Castle Rock PD, our police department, is really engaged with us as well. So we know without a shadow of a doubt that we could not do what we are doing without the help of all of these partnerships. And it wouldn't have happened. The most important partnership, though, is our partnership with the Douglas County Housing Partnership. And the reason that we needed the Douglas County Housing Partnership is because my word was correct. We are really great at being a pasta. We are really great at providing services, caring for individuals with IDD, understanding their needs. We are not property managers. And we needed the Douglas County Housing Partnership to come in and be the property management arm of this project for us. So they are our property management arm. They allowed us access to tax-exempt bond financing, and they are what's managing the affordability on this project. Here's a little picture of when the Douglas County commissioners deeded the property over to our program. We brought our entire program out to the commissioners meeting, and that is a picture at the bottom of one of our participants and Commissioner Layton. They had a moment that brought the entire room to tears. It was one of the best days of my life. So that was that. But how much time do I have?
Roughly close to.
Close to being done. Okay, so I just wanted to explain how we're going to move moving forward. So Wellspring Community, we are a separate organization from Unity on Park. We'll provide residential services. We are moving a couple in that will live there full time. They'll be on site. Our residential manager, our resource coordinator, our life skills coaches will be there providing services. But then Unity on Park owns and operates the building. Douglas County Housing Partnership manages the property, the financing, all of that. And then Wellspring Housing's role is purely to make sure that we keep the intent of the program so that it is always centered around being an inclusive and intentional community. So, good? Okay, fine. Starting over the next one.
This is very inspiring to hear about all these different communities. But what we all share in common is we're just meeting a tremendous need that is happening in all of our backyards. And so just love that this room is full of people who share this vision. I'm Kristin Hyser. I'm the Executive Director of the Broomfield Housing Alliance, and I'm here to talk about the Grove. Let me get to, it's actually called the Grove at Cottonwood. That's fun. Here we go. So Broomfield Housing Alliance, similar to the Douglas Housing Partnership, is the housing authority for the city and county of Broomfield. And I'm going to share to give you hope of how this can come together pretty quickly if you have the vision and the right team and an opportunity. We were created 2 years ago. So I came on board about 2.5 years ago to be the executive director. I was joined by my colleague Amanda Ropek, who's helping me. We're building this together, and by 2026, we're going to have 40 homes available in Broomfield to meet this tremendous need in our community. And so I'm just sharing that because, thank you, these are all my Broomfield peeps here who have been on this journey with us, and I'll introduce them in a second. However, I just am sharing that because this is such a need, and if you get the right ingredients coming together at the right time, it can happen pretty quickly in a really synergistic, amazing, beautiful way. So the Grove at Cottonwood in Broomfield is going to be a neurodiverse, independent living community offering opportunities for self-determined participation and involvement. Really quick, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but the land that we have been able to acquire was always meant to serve this need. Broomfield was only created as a community about 40 years ago, and some of the town founders back in the day donated this land to what was going to become a school, Bow Swan. And the purpose of the land was to serve individuals or children with disabilities. Over the years, the land changed hands, but that was always the intention of this land. So when we had the opportunity, it was actually my first day on the job, my board said, "You're going to go buy this land." And I found out the story of this land. It just seemed like this is what it has to be. Pretty soon after, I met a group of parents, which 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are here with me this morning or this afternoon, who invited me out for coffee and shared their story about raising their children, how great our community is, the great services, but that housing was lacking in our community. And really shared some very poignant testimonials about just what is going to happen when they can no longer care for their children. And so we just banded together and had the opportunity to take this land and move it forward. At the same time, CHFA has a really great tool if you're looking for financing to help you launch something like this. It's the small scale housing technical assistance grant. So at the same time, we had this opportunity to buy land. I met these great people who were seeding this vision for us. And then we received this grant that helped us, it provided us with the resources to do a feasibility study as well as a market study. So we had a team of researchers, architects, a market study. We met Desiree Kamika Galloway, who brings her expertise to this. And we just had this incredible team. This when I first met Tim. Thank you, Tim, who's been on this journey with us too. We had this incredible team to help us really bring all the facets together that we needed to have the confidence that, oh, we can really do this. We can go get the financing to do this. This is the right site. This is the right land. There is a need in our community. All those things that you need to convince your community and funders and everybody else that this is what needs to happen. So with that, and really quick on it. Well, I'll jump to that in a second. But with that, so we had a technical assistance grant. We had the confidence that we can move forward and do this. The next thing we did is we started to engage our neighbors and partners. I'll have a slide about that in a second. We engaged an architect. So Caddis Collaborative is an architect that specializes in intentional communities and co-housing. And we knew whatever the outcome of our community was going to be, we really wanted to have those elements be a part of it. We wanted to build an intentional community. We wanted to have the philosophy of co-housing. It wasn't going to be a traditional co-housing, but we wanted it to be a community where there was connection, socialization, people really knowing each other, helping out each other. And so Caddis was the perfect fit for us for the project. Then we went into initiated the entitlement process. And NIMBYism is alive and well in Broomfield. We picked one of the hardest sites, and it's an infill site in an established neighborhood. It was rough, but what we had with us is this group of parents here. Gabby was standing with us. We had a huge outpouring from across our community that would stand up at every meeting with us and share the whys and the reasons and the story and how beautiful this was going to be. And so we were able to, I wouldn't say sail through it, but we got through it and we got all the approvals we needed to move forward. Then we had the opportunity about that same time, we met Blue Line Development, who our colleagues are in the back there, Brianna and Gabby, who is a really experienced developer out of Montana. They've done a lot of projects here in Colorado. What appealed to us was that they have rich experience in permanently supportive housing. So they really had that service mindset. They shared the same philosophy we had of being values driven, really having a person-centered design and just a concept to all of this. And so I would just say, as you're building your team, find people that have your shared values and people that you're gonna have a fun time doing this with. Where we're at right now, earlier this year, we received, thank you, CHFA, 9% low-income housing tax credits. So that's what differentiates us a little bit from the other projects you've heard previously, is that we are using tax credits to build this. We are in the process of working towards our building permits. We are engaging again with our good neighbors to develop a good neighbor, having a good neighbor conversation. And so because we want to be a good neighbor and we want them to be good neighbors to our residents. So we are navigating that conversation right now. In 2025, we're going to be working towards our close. We're going to be breaking ground mid 2025. We're also working on opening our wait list and pre-leasing, and then our goal is to open doors in 2026. So taking a step back, that is awesome. Taking a step back, so where did the vision? The vision really did come from the parents and families originally. And then we had an incredible opportunity to partner with Friends of Broomfield, which is a service provider in our community. And we went and spent a lot of time with their participants who actually with Desiree, I'm not sure if she's still here in the room, raise your hand if you're here, but Desiree facilitated an incredible opportunity for us where we went to Friends of Broomfield one day. And because some of the participants are nonverbal, the participants had made these incredible signs that one side of the sign was a red sad face and one side was a green happy face. And so Desiree had asked questions like, do you like light? Do you like brightness? And then people had hold up their signs, like indicating what their feelings were about this. And just went through a very long, very informing conversation. There was also, your typical boards where people could do the dots that go for things that they want. And so that really informed what the grow was going to be. Since then, Amanda and I have gone back and we've done similar exercises about kind of just the activities. Do you want cooking classes? Do you want to play croquet? So we're talking about all the social amenities, but the point of all that is we're hearing directly from who we hope are going to be our future residents. It's really important to have the service providers in the conversation with us. They can bring that kind of the technical, what they need. It's great to hear from the parents, but to hear directly from our future residents and what they want and how they want to live and how they want to be in community with other people has just been really informing. And just continue down the path of all partners. I'm not going to go through all these really quick, but just to show you all the people that have to come together on this team. But once again, every single one of these shares the vision with us. They show up every day in every meeting, every step of the way, figuring out how to do this with our future residents at the front and center of every decision we have to make. If you've done development, you go through a value engineering stage. It is so great to hear everybody say, yeah, but what does that do to the future residents? Like how are they going to really experience the common house if we make that decision? It really is at the front of every one of our conversations. So I just very much appreciate the team that we have to help us do this. So at the end of the day, what is the growth going to be? It's affordable, neuro-inclusive, independent housing community. We're offering 40 rental units, offering 1 and 2 bedrooms. We are using a consumer-driven service model. You were here earlier and Desiree was talking about that. Our hope, our desire is that we are a residential community. It's an independent residential community. People will come and live there and be living community together. But they're going to be going out to Broomfield and accessing services and our jobs and their programs and going to the community festivals and fairs and just participating in the Broomfield community, just like any one of our family members, neighbors, how we want to function and live too. And so that's what we are using that model. We are going to have a common house on site. I'll have some pretty pictures in a second. We do have Blue Line is going to be providing our property management. They will be on site. We are also employing a resident concierge. They will be doing service navigation as well as social supports. And so that's everything from if somebody misses their bus to get to their job, or they are having some difficulty with their waivers, that it will be somebody that's a point of contact that they can go to in the community that's going to be there, that can help them navigate that. They're also going to be working with, providing social events and activities that the Broncos game is going to be showing, and like putting that on at the common house and bringing people together to have meals and celebrate things. We also have a really great group of parents. One of the things that we are working through is we have a family and a group of parents that are coming together to establish a nonprofit. And what their nonprofit is going to do, we get to be the guinea pig, but hopefully they'll be able to expand and do more of this in the future across Colorado. It's called Blue Spruce. But they will be training and coordinating volunteers that are going to be coming to the group to help with all these social demands that we're talking about. And so whether it's teaching a cooking class, or it's going to be organizing an outing to a bowling alley, all those sorts of things, a financial skills course, those types of things. So that is one of the things that we're really benefiting from, is just this involvement of this nonprofit that's being established. Transportation is a big deal for us. Broomfield is not very well connected, or connected at all, apparently, in terms of transit. And so we are relying heavily on our local transit, the system that we do have, but we know we have to buy a van. And so we will be purchasing a van that will be provided and available to our residents to get to their jobs, go to the grocery store, go to the rec center, things of that sort. But at the end of the day, when we were designing the property, the priorities that we looked at were safety, support, connection, and comfort. And those are the things that the parents and the future residents themselves said it was really important to them. So those are the 4 principles that really define our design. So maybe on really quick, so this is the financial stack. So like I said, we're using 9% tax credits. We have state tax credits. We're having to go to DOH to help with a little bit more cap financing. If anybody's here, please, thank you. And then we have home funds from the Boulder Broomfield Home Consortium. They had some home ARPA funds, as well as we are using 811 vouchers. We haven't spoken on that this morning. She'll be speaking about that again, about how we're using those for this opportunity. Then we have the typical conventional subordinate debt and grant equity and developer equity. So here's the site. See if I can do this really quick. Oh, a little wrap it up. Okay. Actually, let me see if I can do this. Well, I'm just going to flip through here, but I just want to point out. So over here we have an 8-acre park. So a lot of open space is being met by that. So over here is an 8-acre park. It has pickleball, basketball, playground, all that sort of thing. We actually are building a pathway that connects to the park. And then over here it's 30 units are located in here. It's a 3-story building. It's kind of an apartment feel. And then we have our common house, and then we have 2 separate buildings. And the intention is that if an individual needs more, kind of higher needs, more connection, that they would probably choose to live in the apartment complex. However, we wanted to, or the apartment complex like building. And then however, if somebody is wanting to be more independent and live independently, they can live in one of the outbuildings. Really quick, so that's one of the outbuildings. There's 5 units in this one. There's 5 units across this one. These are all 1-story. And then this is the apartment building and common house. Anyways, I'll wrap up really quick. So the main message is that you can do this too. We have just been at this for 2 years. We're figuring it out. We have great partners surrounding us, but there's a lot more work that has to be done. So you can build it if you have the opportunity to do that. But we also recommend that if you're a housing authority, one of the things that we get to do is we get to participate in special limited partnerships. One of the things that we're doing is changing our policy that if you participate, if we work with you and we participate in a special limited partnership with a developer doing affordable housing in Broomfield, you have to set aside units to serve this population. We're also, and then also, even if you're not set aside, if you're not an SLP with us, we also are just encouraging people to access the 811 vouchers and build it into their other properties. Or just if you're building a run-of-the-mill tax credit or apartment complex or anything, just offering the amenities and access. So individuals of all needs and abilities are able to live there with dignity and choice. With that, pass on.
I just did a quick time check.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, my name is Rachelle Macur and I am with Shopworks Architecture. We are a architecture and design firm based in Denver, Colorado, and we work on affordable housing, supportive housing, shelter spaces, and nonprofit community spaces with mission-aligned organizations. And I am part of our Dignified Design research team. So my background is in social sciences, anthropology in particular, and not an architect and designer. And I was kind of asked to share a little bit about the research that we're doing as a firm and how we're kind of integrating that into our projects. And so kind of a quick background, obviously I don't expect you to read this slide, and we'll share slides. So if anyone wants to follow up, but this is kind of basically our definition of how we're approaching dignified design. Our work actually started in 2016, 2017, our research work stemming from trauma-informed care, and understanding how does the best practices and evidence-based trauma-informed care influence design. What can we do with our environments to ensure that the values that we've talked about all day today, dignity and community and comfort and safety and all of this gets integrated into people's lived experience, but through the environment and that relationship with the environment. And over the years, we've brought in more kind of minds to kind of expand it from being a trauma-informed design approach to a dignified design approach, partly because we don't want it to be pathogenic. We want to be very salutogenic, health-oriented, goal-oriented in the way that we talk about this work, but also because we're bringing in so much more research around biology, neuroscience, environmental psychology, social sciences, all sorts of things, in order to deepen this work of dignified design. What does it mean to do dignified design? What does that look like? How do you do it? And what is the impact when we do it? How does it actually change people's experience? And so a lot of this work is really intuitive. I think we've all been in spaces that don't feel comfortable. They have institutional feels, they lack daylight, they're crowded, they're noisy, they're disorienting. They don't give us the feedback that this is the place that we want to be in. Actually, we want to get out of them as quickly as possible. And we've all been in spaces with actually the similar intention. A clinic space, a shelter, a laundry room, classroom, just like the last ones, but that give a different feel, right? That speak to us maybe about our value in the space, that make us want to be in the place, that allow us to connect with that space, connect with each other. And so like I said, a lot of this is really intuitive, but it's, okay, what is the evidence behind this? What is the research behind this? And what does it mean for people's actual experience? So we actually spend a lot of time kind of trying to understand biology and how our brain interacts with the environment. And essentially, this is really key because our environments matter. Every time we walk into a space or as we walk through a space, we're constantly scanning that environment for signals. Is this a place for signals of survival? Is this a place that we can be sustained in, that we can thrive in? Is this a place that we can relax in, that we can meet our needs? Or is this a place that's threatening? Do we need to protect ourselves? Do we need to prepare our body for fighting or for fleeing? And we're constantly, consciously and subconsciously scanning our environment for cues to feed back to ourselves how we need to react in a space. And this is really important because this part of our brain, this is like a most basic biological functioning of our brain. If we're in this arousal state more often, or if we're in this relaxed kind of alert state more often, has long-term impacts for our physical, mental, social well-being. Not only how we act in that moment, but how we carry that through to the rest of our lives. And so when we started digging into this work, we really wanted to understand how do we best design spaces for supportive housing, for affordable housing, for shelters, for nonprofits. How do we do this and to ensure that we are creating more harm than good? We know the built environment has a bigger impact on people's health and well-being than the medical industry. So we have a responsibility, and design matters. But when we started digging into this, we recognized that there wasn't a lot of research out there actually. And so there was some kind of knowledge around biophilia and nature-oriented spaces. There's great work in trauma-informed care, but there wasn't a lot of great research specifically for the people that we were trying to build, the people that were trying to live and work and visit our buildings. So we thought about how can we best really prioritize humans and human-scaled environments in housing. How can we improve health? How do we give a sense of dignity? How do we improve safety, offer joy, healing, this sort of thing? And so we just started talking to our end users, talking to the experts of their experiences. As we kind of talked about this whole panel and throughout the day, that this is essential to the work. And so at this point, we've talked over 2,500, close to 3,000 individuals on their experience. Asking lots of questions around, where do you feel safe? Where do you not feel safe? Where do you like to connect with others? What do you like to do in those spaces? What hobbies do you like to engage with? And where do you like to engage in those hobbies? Where are the pressure points in your life? What are the struggles? Where are the stressors? How are you overcoming them? When you get stressed out, where do you go? What do you do to kind of regulate yourself? So asking a lot of these questions and getting a lot of feedback that is very specific to the context of the project. And at this point, we've kind of put this dignified design lens on over 75 different projects and done a lot of post-occupancy research to see, okay, with the intention that we put into the design, is it actually what we're getting out? Are we what we call these affordances that people want in their space? Is this actually what people are experiencing in the end, people that are living and working in these buildings? And so we've, after these 3,000 interviews and doing research with Kaiser Permanente, Sozose Foundation, key themes have kind of risen to the top. And this is a boring slide, but this is like the meat of our work as researchers. We love this boring stuff. But ultimately, this experience that people want, that we hear over and over and over again, is self-worth, it's dignity, self-respect. This is the ultimate goal that we want for ourselves and what we want for our residents and our staff to experience as well. And linked to that is the experience of safety. And a lot of people have talked about this today too, not just like life and fire safety, security safety, but a sense of safety, perceived safety, ontological security, sense of self-worth. And so this piece of safety is really essential for our work. So what does that mean to experience safety? And really what we find is that it's interdependent and arises from comfort, community, and control. When people have comfort, community, and control, there's a sense of safety. And people in all buildings, there's always some amount of comfort, some amount of community, some amount of control. But when we find that there's low level comfort, control, and community, there's low grade safety. And when we have high quality comfort, control, and community, we have high grade safety. And when people have high grade safety, they report feelings of hope, future thinking, a desire to give back to the community, to volunteer in their community. They have more trust in their neighbors. They have more trust in their friends. They have more trust in staff. And so this high grade safety is what we're going after. But we can't just say, okay, let's just design a space for comfort. Let's design a space that has community and control, because these aren't design elements. Like, we can't just say, okay, we're going to design community. Community is an experience that people have that evolves kind of in a more organic space. Same with control. It's not like we can't give people control. We can't give people comfort. This is an experience that arises. But what we can do is create spaces that offer generosity, that allow for connection, and that offer choice. And so this is really how then we approach our work, building these elements of generosity, connection, and choice. And so just a few examples of how that shows up in design. So when we talk about generosity and generous spaces, these are spaces that have enriched environments. They're sensory engaging. They are beautiful just for beauty's sake. They spark joy. They have a feeling of mystery, and they draw you in. They connect to you. You want to check them out. You want to engage with them. But they are also spaces that not only give to you, but allow you to give. So they allow you to work in the garden. They allow you to work in the kitchen. They allow you to make art and display it around the building. So it's spaces of reciprocity that allow for giving and taking. And from this, people can be at greater ease and find comfort in space. When we talk about elements of connection, and this last one is from Lake Laridan. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this property. Beautiful. When we talk about elements of connection, it's very nuanced and very layered. So people talk about layers of connection. There's connection with self. There's connection with your friends, neighbors, connection with staff, connections with your pets, connections with hobbies, art, music, so forth. And all of this is giving a feedback of self-worth and allows us to get away from these really harsh feelings of isolation and give us a sense of belonging, which is so necessary for building resilience and feeling a part of a community. When we're in a greater area of stress, our community is the number one thing that draws us out of those stress responses and brings us back into our body and back into our cortex so that we can actually handle that stress and move through it and build resiliency. So this is a picture of a gentleman at Valor on the Facts, which is a project with the Brain Injury Alliance. Okay, and then the last element is of choice. And so like we talked about, choice kind of gives this feeling of control. We can't give people control, but we can give people choice. So that there is a greater sense of control. And one thing that we really talk a lot about in our work is that we can't eliminate triggers. We can be very conscious of modulating sensory input, and we can be very conscious of giving people a diversity of choices. But the reality is that we all have different triggers, and it's very individual. And so what we want to do is create choices so people can go and seek out the spaces and the feedback they need in order to self-regulate. So this is really about, giving places for people, again, to connect with themselves, connect with another person. If you're in a fight response, then you can, kick, yell, scream, whatever it is to get that energy released out. Finding places of compression, giving this feedback of comfort, of bringing our energy down. And then elements of sensory modulation. So it gives us sensory feedback to get us back into our bodies, back into the present state. And so it's really about offering this diversity of choices as we move through the building, so that people can get what they need from the space. And yeah, okay, one more slide. And then ultimately, like I said, these three elements lead to this experience of safety. And we need this sense of safety in order to, like I said, have these feelings of hope, future thinking, of giving back to our community, of feeling safe and secure in ourselves and in our belongings, so that we can reach those higher level goals that we have in our experience. Without the sense of safety, we're in this biological response of survival constantly. And so we really can't get to those higher level opportunities in our life. So this really becomes the foundation from which we look at all our projects. And so, yeah, there's lots to share. We have a website with a lot of our white papers, a lot of our research on it. And future research, we're also looking at things like biomarkers, looking at pulse rates, looking at heart rate variability, in addition to our ongoing qualitative research, to really make sure that what we've all been talking about all day today is about these very intuitive feelings of what we need in space, but that we can actually start to prove it through science and research so that we are actually able to integrate it more into the industry and make sure this is part of all of our projects. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you y'all for coming back in from lunch and sitting in. We are breaking out into the breakout rooms again. It's a repeat of what took place during our first breakouts this morning. So just as a reminder, the session on housing vouchers and other sources of rental assistance, you'll stay in here with me. We're going to be in here. Breakout room 3 is Medicaid 101, how home and community-based service waivers work. And then in breakout room 2, development, financing, and rental housing properties. You have about 5 minutes to transition or so. So grab a cup of coffee, pop into the restroom, and we'll see you back at 2.
Then, I want to remind you that we have sensory. So please go visit it if you want to. Also, I really let you know that this broadcast will be available after the summit.
Actually, like she has to come on there.
You know, like Mark.